Okay, welcome to Wise Women Wednesday for Brava Women Networking. Today we've got the wonderful Natalia Walker from Inner Creative, who is an accountability and mindset coach who helps big-hearted, purpose-driven business owners get out of their own way and create success on their own terms. Natalia's approach to her client work draws on 25 years in strategic planning and project management, degrees in engineering, the arts, and social sciences, as well as her Mandela art practice, creativity training, and Psych K belief change facilitation. Described as compassion with insight, Natalia is a gentle nudge that gets her clients moving, and doing work that matters and feels right for them. Over to you, Natalia.
Thanks, Dia. So today I want to talk to you about how to be productive while embracing your true nature. And what I'm sharing, you can basically use whether or not you're working in a business or just working in a job. It doesn't really matter. It's really all about just being yourself. So getting into it. Yeah. So not sure how it felt like when you first started your business, but with me, I felt, a bit overwhelmed by all the things I had to be doing, all the things I should, all the shoulds out there, and just got really overwhelming. And then even one of my clients once described it to me as like all the voices and all the information out there, it just feels like soup. So I'm assuming that you don't want to feel overwhelmed, like you're on an endless treadmill, fighting fires, not feeling overly satisfied, doing work that doesn't necessarily feel as rewarding or making the impact that you want it to be. And I know I'd prefer being like the lady on the woman on the right who's looking a little bit more happy and relaxed and engaged at her work, assuming that's what's on her screen. So what I've discovered for myself and by working with my clients is that when we're more productive, when we're more productive, happier, and doing work we love, having a better impact when we're working with our nature, not against it. So how do you do that? Pretty much, you just start with noticing what's working, what's not, and then experimenting. So, learning from others, what has worked for other people, trying it out, testing it, measuring, and then reflecting and adjusting. How does it actually feel? Does it work for me? It worked for somebody else, but maybe it's not quite right. Or maybe I just need to tweak it. And this isn't to say that like we're never to change. We just go, well, this is who I am and that's it. And I'm not changing for anybody. It's not about doing that. But if we do want to actually implement change, that we do it gently, kindly, and gradually. And look, sometimes I find, well, for myself anyway, it was like, I was a bit scared to actually try things my own way because it's like, well, everybody else is doing it this way. And if I do it my way, then maybe it means I'm lazy or I'll get sloppy or it won't work or I'll fail. So sometimes we actually just need to also give ourselves permission. And that's where that experimentation comes in. Just try, a little bit. You don't have to change everything. Just make a tweak and see if that makes a difference to how you feel. Otherwise, what can happen, you can basically lead to burnout, or you can just go into pure rebellion mode and just not do anything and, avoid doing the work that is important. So here are just some ideas that you can try out for yourself. So listening to and respecting your energy. So that's in terms of obviously the time of day you're working, the environment you're working in, and your level of engagement. So in terms of time of day, like generally speaking, you can know if you're an owl, night owl, or an early bird, and then work, with that circadian rhythm. But the thing is, generally speaking, most people have that sort of peak attention span, like an hour either side of noon. And then there's sort of another peak attention span, I think around 6. So, an hour either side of that. But probably generally if we're wanting to work, it's probably, closer to the, during the day. But scheduling your more important task or the tasks that require a lot of thinking around that sort of peak time for you. And then, your least thinking sort of, you don't need a whole lot of focus. You obviously still want to do good work, but if you don't need to do a lot of processing or high intensive cognitive work, then do that, around the sort of less peak times. So, you know, that 3 p.m. slump is a bit of an interesting time. So either have a nap or just use that time for, you know, going for a walk or just doing things that, you know, don't require a lot of processing energy. The other thing is to think about where you get your energy. Like, is it from around people or is it by yourself? Do you need quiet or do you prefer a bit of bustle around you? And look, there's no perfect answer. And that's why I sort of suggest experimenting with what works for you and in what situations. And the last point here is about your level of interest and engagement. So if you're actually procrastinating on something, start with the bit that you're interested in doing. And hopefully by doing that, even though it might not necessarily be the main thing that you want to work on or, you know, only a little bit, by getting that small win and that momentum, it'll actually help you to sort of move or just give yourself the confidence to keep going and then get onto the more challenging task. Do you work better with internal or external expectations? So the internal is that basically if you're making promises to yourself and you find that you keep them, that's your internal expectations. And if external expectations means that if you promise to somebody else, then you're more likely to keep that. And, you know, it might once again depend on what the situation is. If you respond better to internal expectations, so that's where, you know, using tick charts, you know, all of these tracking apps that we've got available now. If you want to go old school, then Break the Chain is an example that's credited to Jerry Seinfeld. So apparently the story goes anyway that he wanted to, you know, be writing at least one joke per day. Whether or not he performed it was another thing, but to keep him on his toes, he wanted to write one joke. So what he did was he got the good old fashioned calendar and then he just wrote like a red diagonal line on it when he did his joke. And then as you can see in that little image that I've sort of mocked up there, that, you know, you just keep going with the line every time you've done that one thing. And over time, once you've built it, then you go, oh, I don't actually want to break the chain. Like you sort of actually like the feeling of actually completing that. If external expectations are better for you, then it's just basically about sharing what you want to achieve with somebody else. And you can be as public or as private as you like about that. So, you know, if you want to go and post it on, you know, your Facebook page and go, yep, this is what I'm going to do, then that's great. But, you know, if that's a little bit scary and don't really want to push yourself out there, just share with a friend or work, you know, with a coach or in a group setting that feels safe to you. And look, one's not better than the other. It's just, once again, working out what works for you and doing that, just giving it a go. And then the last one, you're probably all familiar with this, but if you're not, around, you know, how we learn and process information has a really big impact on our productivity. And look, I learned a lot of this just intuitively and probably you sort of know these things about yourself too, that I was in my old working environment and went to the stationery cupboard one day and found a whole lot of different coloured Post-it notes. And I just went, oh, these look really nice. And a bit of a, you know, I love stationery. So I went and popped them on my desk and it was crazy, but my productivity actually increased. And I remember actually speaking to people about it going, oh my goodness, I put these all I did was instead of stacking them, I just broke them up and made them into a bigger pad sort of thing. So I had like, you know, every few things I have a color and made a bit of a rainbow. And I was like, it's really scary and sad, but that actually increased my productivity. Like, you know, that's just crazy. Like I didn't even like really need to use them all. They just had to sit there. And it was only later once I've done all my training, I went, oh, it's highly visual processing. So color, you know, works for me. So in terms of all of these learning styles, so the visual is, you know, needing to see the information. So that's where the color, as I said, you know, writing things, using diagrams, charts, using name tags if you're going to networking, you know, writing notes, using visual cues. So you know, you might have the, you know, Post-it notes, sticky notes all over your workspace, which is fine. But the other thing to be mindful of is if you are highly visual, that if you have any sort of clutter or, you know, messiness or movement even, that it can be distracting. So work with a clear space. In terms of auditory, it's learning by listening and processing by speaking. So you may need to actually talk through your ideas. And this can be tricky when we're talking to somebody else. So you might want to give them a heads up to go, look, I'm not really going to decide this right now. I'm just throwing out a few options, but I just need to hear myself think about this, rather than, you know, if you're talking to someone and they've gone, but I thought you decided that, or they're trying to fix it for you. And like, no, I just need to work it through by talking it, out. And you might have certain groups that you can be in where you can have those sort of discussions in a safe space. Or if you just don't have anybody else to bounce off, then you can do a voice record. You might find that you get, the information just by playing it back, or just even as you say it. Once again, in terms of distractions, background music can be good, but it can also be distracting. In terms of the kinesthetic, that's learning by doing. So that's, actually writing, drawing, doodling, fiddling, touching, jewelry or pen clicking can be annoying for other people, but do what's right for you. Moving, walking while you're thinking, and obviously, actually doing the thing, even getting on a Zoom and processing it. So if you want to know more about that, just get in touch. In terms of how I can help you around this is sort of my approach. I really like working with people and making sure that you're doing you, that you're working to your strengths. So if you go to that QR code or innercreative.com.au/all, you can see my free characteristics mini ebook, which I've got. It says about creativity, but it's essentially 40 ideas that you can use around your work. I've got a planner that's non-dated, and it guides you through a visual kinesthetic approach to setting your goals and then managing your to-do list. And it's got that habit tracker that you might have seen in previous pages. And then I also do accountability. But look, thank you very much. I hope you at least got one idea out of this, and just try and test it out, and hope it works for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Natalia. Absolutely, definitely got lots of good things out of it. So we'll pop your links down below in the chat, under the YouTube.